Hello, America and the world. We've got the
Good
American
morning.
Awakening Squad without our key teammate, Marissa Prince, who's in the studio today. More to come on that. But we're really excited to be with you. We've got some great music coming to you from Nashville, as we so often do. But we kick you off with our special teammate, house worship leader, the guy that's been here every single day, hardest working man in podcast and live stream history, musician, JBJ.
Thanks, John. That was an awesome intro, man. Yeah, I wanted to sing a song just about us reaching out to Jesus as being broken people, hurting people, and needing healing. So this is a song from one of my favorite artists, Dustin Kenstrup, and I hope you like it. Here we go. The blind won't gain their sight by opening their eyes. A king is coming to his city, and crowds around are following. If I could see, I would follow too. He heals the sick with his hands. As he walks by, they reach for him. If I could see, I would reach out to. The blind won't gain their sight by opening their eyes. Son of David, have mercy on me. Son of David, have mercy on me. Son of David, I want to see. Son of David, have mercy. I cannot leave this gate since I cannot see my way, but I can stand and call his name. No, I could never leave this gate, but I will stand and shout his name. mercy on me. Son of David, have mercy on me. Son of David, I want to sing. Son of David, have mercy.
That's good. That's good, JJ.
Thank you, JBJ. I'm not going to put any pressure on you, Joel, but I'm just going to say that for, if you're going to follow that, the Daily Dose is going to
Top
really
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
good thing I got the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. Great to be with you today. I had a whole thing prepared about a whole bunch of stuff written in the Daily Dose. If you get the emails following on that, but I'm just charismatic enough to believe that maybe the Holy Spirit wants to take me a different direction. So this morning on our team prayer call that we do every morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, the leadership team of American Awakening and a bunch of other leaders from around the country, an image came into my mind while we were praying, and I think it might be for some of you out there, which is this idea. It's kind of a throwback idea. It's an agrarian idea of what used to happen when a farmer who tilled and plowed and prepared his fields basically by hand, or maybe with the help of a team of oxen or a donkey, what he had to do in preparation for the things that were coming. And in the specific reflection was really having to do with this idea that some of our efforts, some of our activities, some of the things that we do end up feeling so futile, so small, so insignificant. And yet there is, in the way that God works, some kind of really amazing, grand thing where he takes the littlest things that we do and he turns them into something amazing. So the farmers in, let's just call it pretty much before the age of machines, but let's just pretend that we're in the 1800s, and a farmer would have his plow and very often would have two handles. I'm trying to demonstrate this for the people on the live stream, with two handles, and then the blade kind of came down from the structure and it curved, and the point of the blade, of that particular type of blade, was to go down into the soil and break it up, and then turn it up as the blade went down and drove through, usually with the help of oxen or mules. It would break up the soil. And the image that came to my mind was this very mundane, very difficult image of the blade just piercing the soil for the first time. So here's this farmer at the beginning of the field. Let's say he's got 20 acres. He's got a plow with just he and his oxen, and he pierces that soil for the very first time. And all he can think, in kind of in the flesh, in your mind, you're thinking, oh my gosh, look at all the work ahead. And all I just did was just pierce the soil with that one blade. And here I go down my first row. But there is something sacred in the tiny little acts of obedience that we know are part of preparing the way for something that will bring life. And there is no way you get to that point unless you sink that blade into the soil and begin to work it up. And that small act of obedience leads to a full field of grain and life and fruitfulness. And so I just want to encourage you, if that's you, you're doing something that feels like so insignificant and small, just know that the faithfulness of sinking that first blade into the soil, turning it over, is preparing for something ahead that will bring life. That's your Daily Dose. Back to you, John.
That's good.
All right. So JBJ threw down, and Pastor Joel responded. That was good. That was the imagery is so compelling, man. Thank you so much for noting that. Any words on that before I go over to Jeff?
Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I think the part that I think was particularly noteworthy about it for me is as you describe it, it's a by our modern standards, a somewhat mind-numbing mundanity of doing that, right? I mean, it is a really plodding task. It's after day going through the soil. There's no glory, but it's necessary. It was the only path to happen. So powerful imagery. Much. All right, I am kicking it over to Jeff Bethke. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can. He glitched for a second, but we got you. Like usual, you know. You got 56K dial up in that office. You remember that, man? I don't miss those days where me and my sister would always. I know. Me and my sister would always fight over who could be on the phone and who could be on the internet, because she was at the age where she wanted to be on the phone with all their girlfriends, and I wanted to be on the internet. And remember back then, you couldn't do both. But something to chew on for you guys today. Something really simple, and I think actually just really coincides with even what Joel was talking about in a precursory way. And I was just I was reading a couple days ago, and there's anytime like a little phrase in scripture kind of grabs me, I just try to sit on it for a couple days and chew on it. Hence the segment, and hence why I bring it to you guys. And one that I thought was really powerful was, man, you're not going to find. Well, first of all, let's just start with the fact that you're not going to find usually more deeply poetic, beautiful, linguistically masterful narratives and stories and structures in the scriptures. I think a lot of us don't realize how dynamic some of the text really is as rich literature. Hence why it's also lasted so long. It is iconic at some level and at all levels. And one thing we see in Psalm is this phrase that stuck with me is, I was reading in the ESV, so it says exactly that. It says, the psalmist talking to God says, "You have kept count of my tossings, and you have put my tears in your bottle." And then he kind of asked this rhetorical question: are they not in your book? And the NIV says, "You have recorded my misery, you list my tears on your scroll, are they not in your record?" And I just thought, man, what a sentence to chew on, especially in this time, because there's so much. I mean, me and my wife Alyssa were just even talking about this yesterday. Like, it's literally, I haven't lived in a time where it's been so impossible to even hold the comprehensive weight of the difficulty right now. I mean, like, I can't actually even just hold it in my mind to understand it. If just, there's so many layers, economically, relationally, job, death, etc., from so many different people, and it cuts. I've never seen something cut a million different ways, but still hurt so many people. And so, man, what phrase do we need, and what reminder do we need more than right now that your tears are actually caught by God? What a cool word picture, that they're caught in his bottle. They are caught by him. And someone only catches tears in a bottle if they're paying attention, if they're close to you, if they're next to you, just like God is. And then I love that question where he says, are they not in your record? He keeps count of them. There's a record of them. He's aware of them. And that to me is, man, a reminder we need, that we not only just see in the sentence, but we see that fully comes into fruition in Jesus, that he comes to us. The scriptures is this really cool narrative of a God who comes close, a God who is intimate, a God who is has momentum towards us in every act of the play. He's never distant. He's never turning his back. He's never going the opposite direction, even though it might feel like that. He's actually coming towards us, and he's always intimate towards us. And he is for us in our suffering and in our pain. And so I just wanted that to be a reminder today, and something to chew on, that hopefully that brings you some encouragement, and that that it's not just some conciliatory, cheap words, but actually we see Jesus putting flesh on that truth literally, and that's what it makes it even more profound. So that's something to chew on, and back to you guys.
That's good, Jeff. That's good.
Can you hear me?
We got you. Look at that. Whoa, you went straight from 56K to broadband.
Wow.
You're almost going fiber on them soon.
Thank you, technology gods, for bringing me through to these guys and all of you out there. So could you read that segment again? Just read it again, because that was just so compelling to me.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's funny. It's what's that word? It's so evergreen, right? That God comforts us in our pain. It's one of the most evergreen truths ever that I think we all need.
Yeah, I mean, do you actually mind just reading the actual language you read, the tears?
Yeah, so I read from the ESV and the NIV. The first one I read was the ESV, which says, "Yeah, you have kept count of my tossings. You have put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book?" And then another translation I even found too said, "You have taken account of my wanderings, and you have put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book?" So yeah, really, really cool translations for sure.
Now I know this is it's not very, we're missing Marissa, back to that in a minute, but I know it's not very masculine to talk about tears and bottles and counting them and records of tears and all this sort of stuff. But just metaphorically or euphemistically, does anybody identify with that today? Come on, you hard guys, give me something.
Yeah, I mean, I cry all the time. So
yes, I don't even think it should be metaphorically.
Yeah, like I mean, in terms of things that make us weep, I think there was some got twisted, this idea that men were not supposed to cry. I mean, it's ancient. It's an ancient concept, as Jeff is pointing us to, and I think there is something so healing in the ability to let those things go. And to me, there's something about knowing that God is hearing me. And when I hear that phrase, I think of, as I weep and mourn, God, it is not wasted. God collects it, because it'd be one thing if it's like this sense of like falling to the ground and then it's over. Like, okay, I'm done. I wept, and for what? But it's like God collects the tears. There's something about like a collective mourning and lament. And, we've talked about the need for that right now, that it's not just in vain, that there is something that happens when you weep and mourn that is so important and powerful that God decides, like, at least metaphorically, I'm going to capture that and I'm going to keep that. So that really resonates with me.
Yeah, amen.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Andrew.
Well, I can't really add much to what Joel said. I would just say that if you're alive, to be alive and to be really awake in the world is to feel anguish and to feel pain. It's the goal shouldn't be to avoid those things or to live a life of sort of dull comfort, right? So I totally agree with what Joel said.
I also love the other translation, that word wanderings, and how everything's been recorded in this book. I feel like there are definitely moments in my life, even recently, of wondering, what are we doing? Why? Doesn't matter. I know John, who has been also very vulnerable on this show, wrestles with that, and he wrestles with that aloud with our prayer call that we have daily. And so, yeah, I think that to know that he is even tracking that and kind of weaving it into his much larger story, that was also comforting, because I know the wanderings often do come with tears. There's an anguish and a frustration, even personally, of what is this all for? What does this mean? Will he use it? So I also love that word in that translation.
JBJ's got something.
Bring it, JBJ.
I think when Jeff was talking about God captures your tears, I don't cry often, but sometimes I'm like, man, am I just so numb? But I do remember the times that I did cry, and I remember this one time when I was living in Dallas, that I was driving, and I was crying throughout the 20 or 30-minute drive because of a certain situation that happened to me, and it's crazy to think that God captured all those tears. You know what I mean? And that although I've forgotten it, and although my tear ducts have dried up, those tears have been captured by God, and they're not in vain, I guess, and that's the hurt and pain of the world, and it's hard for dudes to cry, but sometimes you got to get an ugly cry out there,
Yeah. So what was the refrain of your song again? What was the line of your song, JBJ? It seems like I've lost it, but it seems like it certainly tracks this to me.
Yeah. The refrain is just a cry of the heart, Son of David, have mercy on me.
Yeah.
I want this Son of David. And so even, I heard a message. I would hear a message on that 1,000 times, but it's so like when you don't have anything else to say, the only thing you can say is help, help me, Son of David, help me, and it's even the Holy Spirit goes through the groanings of your heart,
Right.
And you don't have to be eloquent or have the right thing to say, but he already knows how you're feeling, and just having something simple as Son of David, have mercy, resonates with God.
Yeah, well, I number one, I agree with you entirely. Number two, when you were singing that was resonating deeply with me. And number three is the paradox, of course, which is he would gain his life, would lose it. The whole thing is that where our faith and our relationship with the Almighty, perhaps even where he wants us, most is in those moments. Like, it's like we feel the worst because, like, I can barely put into words. I don't feel empowered to move forward, et cetera, with the word, whatever the feeling is that makes you, so much in that spot of just have mercy on me. That is like, the thing we all want to resist, and not have that feeling. But yet that's a position I think that God uniquely and specifically honors. So,
yeah, I can't
Just
help but think.
what Joel said. No.
Go ahead, JB.
No, I was just saying, even just feeding into what Joel said about the soil, and sometimes with our emotions, when you're working that soil, it just feels like you're hitting a rock the whole time, And I just thought the imagery that Joel presented, even though it was a complete different idea, that's the idea that I got in my head of trying to make sure your heart softens, I guess, because it can be numb at times.
Yeah, and tears help that. I can't help but think of the story of Mary Magdalene, and since we are without any of our female friends today, I'll bring that to us. That she was at Jesus' feet, and she was literally washing his feet with her tears. And one of the most powerful things about that story for me is Jesus' rebuke of the rest. He's like, "Hey, I came in here. You didn't do anything for me. And here's this woman in her sorrow and in her pain, and she is washing my feet with her tears. She's bringing her sorrow and her pain to me and using it for a kind of an act of submission and worship and service." And I think there's something powerful there about the vulnerability to come in our pain and with our tears that is so much more powerful, as Jesus demonstrates it there, than the quote unquote most powerful, the host of the banquet, the leaders of the free world, if you want to bring it to the common era. And here they are, they have these big, pomp and circumstance, and they're powerful, and everyone knows them. And yet Jesus points to what she did in bringing those tears as an act of service. And I think that's just a powerful picture that he gives us related to tears.
Covering a lot of territory here. Appreciate all the contributions, Jeff, Joel, and JBJ up to now, and over to Calvin for storyline of what those tears are looking like in the current day.
Sure, absolutely. All right, well, a couple stories today of what happened out in the world over the weekend. I guess the first story, we're going to start with White House officials and Senate Republicans are finalizing a bill that would offer another round of the $1,200 checks to many Americans, and that would not renew the full unemployment insurance enhancement as part of a proposal for the next stimulus bill. These payments would mirror the first round of stimulus checks, in which individuals were due a one-time payment of up to $1,200, and families could receive $2,400 plus $500 per child. The size of the payments scaled down by income level and phased out altogether for higher income Americans. White House economic advisor Larry Kelo said on State of the Union that the $1,200 checks to Americans will be part of the new recovery package, in addition to re-employment bonuses, retention bonuses, and tax credits for small businesses and restaurants. Also, big news, after weeks of violent clashes between federal agents and protesters in Portland, Oregon, thousands of people marched through the streets of American cities on Saturday, injecting new life into protests that had largely waned in recent weeks. One of the most intense protests was in Seattle, where a day of demonstrations focused on police violence left a trail of broken windows and people flushing pepper spray from their eyes. At least 45 protesters had been arrested as of early evening on Saturday, and both protesters and police officers suffered injuries. In Austin, Texas, the police said one man was shot and killed just before 10 p.m. during a protest in the city's downtown. In a live video of the scene, protesters are seen marching through an intersection when a car blares its horn. Seconds later, 5 shots ring out, followed shortly after by several more loud bangs. The man who was killed may have approached a vehicle with a rifle before he was shot and killed, according to Officer Katrina Ratcliffe, Ms. Radcliffe said the person who shot and killed the man had fired from inside the vehicle and that the person was detained and is cooperating with officers. Lastly, in LA, protesters clashed with officers in front of the federal courthouse downtown. Video showed police smashing windows, or people smashing windows, and lobbing water bottles at officers after protesters said the police fired projectiles at them first. So there you have it, a couple stories of what happened over the weekend. And now over to our friend Andrew Hanauer to bring us our next segment, #LoveYourNeighbor.
Thanks, Calvin. You're a font of happiness and joy. So thanks for those uplifting stories. How's everyone doing out there? It's so good to be with you on Monday. Hope you all had a great weekend. For the past couple months, we've been talking about the divisions in our society during the pandemic and how that manifests itself. And I think one of the things that's really clear when we are ensconced in our own bubble, ideological bubble, our own personal sort of bubble, is that the pain that we experience in the world is limited to a selective group. We hear stories about X kind of victim, but not Y kind of victim. And I think one of the things that's really important for us to do as we begin the hard work of trying to rebuild this country from the impact of the last few months is to think a little bit more broadly about who's been impacted over the last few months. This is not just a story of people who have been stricken with a virus. It's not just a story of people who have lost their jobs, although those two things are obviously extremely important. This is also a story of the toll that this entire period of time in our history has taken on communities. And I want to focus on two examples. One is homelessness and the other is domestic violence. Very unfortunately, during this period of time, as you can imagine, with families under enormous amounts of stress and trapped in their homes, the number of cases of domestic violence has gone up. The amount of time that people are spending, whether they're children or whether they are partners, with an abusive person has gone up, with predictable and tragic consequences. Meanwhile, I think it's not too hard to imagine the impact of COVID on the homeless population, often lacking the ability to have basic hygiene equipment or basic hygiene protocols, being exposed to populations that are at high risk and being without adequate housing and healthcare. And so I think the question that I want to just put in front of us and the conversation that I think we can have and that the country needs to have is, as we begin to think about what's next, how do we make sure that we're not just in this binary where, either we're focused on how many people are dying from this virus or we're focused on how the virus is overblown or what have you, but how do we think about all those people who maybe are silent, who are being impacted, whose voices are not being heard, and the impact that this is having on them? Because it's often drowned out by the news, by the most sensationalist, the loudest coverage of whatever's happening. But these are real people whose pain matters.
It's a great question, Andrew. Yeah, it also makes me think about, just to add, not that you were omitting this on purpose, but all the racial tension, the protests, the of course the destructive, violence, but also the deep pain. And in the same way, it's easy to just focus on, one small element of that and miss a whole lot of other elements. I know for me, one of the things I think about, Andrew, is like, there is one prerequisite to doing what you're doing, or maybe there's more, but one for sure, which is you have to actually be in relationship with people who are in pain. Yeah. Right? If you're just living in your comfortable bubble, which is so understandable, if you're someone who has actually had a bit of kind of healthy response, a stable, intact family, whatever it may be in this moment, it would be very tempting. In fact, I had this conversation with my sister-in-law and my wife last night. Gosh, let's just write it out, let's just write it out. And yet there's so many people who do not have the option to just quote unquote write it out. And so How do we get into relationship with people? How do we ask the right questions with people we're already in relationship with? And just to see, how are you doing? What's going on? What's really underneath all of that? And so that's what makes me think of Andrew. It's just real relationship. Got to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that's in common, whether you are, looking at conspiracy theories all the way to the other side of, whether you are just locked in on this one perspective, right? That this is the way things are, and that everyone who isn't thinking the way you are is wrong. Both of those things lack relationship with a person who might have a different life experience than you, who might be going through something hard that doesn't neatly fit into your ideology. And I think relationship, I think you're right on. It breaks down that sort of simple tunnel vision way of thinking about the world.
Yeah, I think this is one of those days where the question, as compelling as it is to wrestle with, in light of all the foregoing, seems almost overwhelming to wrestle with. I mean, not that we can't avoid it. We can't avoid it. I mean, ultimately, you have to just keep on trying. But it seems like for people of faith on some level, of course, we're trying to articulate the view that you should lean in and do the best you can to help whomever you can, wherever you can, right? So that's a sort of an anchoring conviction of all of ours. But in light of everything we just said, right, and in light of all the stuff we just articulated, Joel and Jeff and JBJ with their contributions, and then Calvin's cheery news stories. That it basically sometimes you just got all the best you can do is just to show up, just keep showing up, and metaphorically or otherwise, ask God to help and ask God to work through you in the best way you can in a given day. Because sometimes the answers that are scale answers, they can elude us for sure. But we all have little spheres of influence, some place that we are leaning into human beings. I mean, we all have some human beings, some degree, somehow or other, and fewer these days, I know. But there's somebody, a half degree of separation away from you that somehow you're wrestling with in this, and we just those plaintive appeals to God to say, hey, help me to help that person, whoever that person is.
That's good. Yeah, that was what I was going to add. Is the same thing of just really concentrating on going from inward focus to outward focus, and it just changes everything, because it's so easy when you're insular or kind of paying attention to yourself that you miss. It's almost like you have your eyes closed to what's in front of you. But when you're kind of head up, eyes out, then that away from yourself, it really changes how you see people, how you see needs, how you see what's in front of you. And so kind of just paying attention and cultivating that practice, because it's really difficult to do, is a really helpful start, I think, in this point.
Yeah, I think that's the part of what John was saying, is showing up. And I mean, I get it, guys. Like, it's so easy to just be amused. Just let me just divert. Let me just feel better right now. Let me just watch my show. Let me just feel some pleasure. Let me just eat something good. And again, those things are great, but when they're used as a way to not show up, that's when things get really twisted. And so that's where I'm at. My prayer, like John, is just, Lord, help me to see, help me to be present, help me to be in that moment when I feel the pain of the other person, and then to bring something, whatever it is. Maybe it's just the presence, and not walk away. That's the hard part.
Yeah. I think sorry, John, were you gonna say? No. I was just really quick. I think for me, what showing up or relationship has meant was actually this idea of being proximate, the idea of proximity, being actually close to it. I think, personally, I actually find it very hard. I think we can wrestle with these things. We can even want to help from the comfort and safety of our own homes and our own communities, where we're secure and we're okay. I mean, it may be hard, but relatively our experience is different. And sometimes, we even show up and try to help for a little bit, right? But I think the real challenge is actually true relationship. And this is at least from a Christian faith perspective, is this idea of like walking life out together with people and being close with people, even geographically within your neighborhood, or John was saying, your sphere of influence. Are you close with the people whose experiences are different than yours? And so I think that's also has actually been a challenge for me. Could I be proximate with the people who are struggling with homelessness, even in my neighborhood right now? In the city of Boston, there are plenty of folks who are struggling with that. And it's easy to stay in your apartment, in your area with your friends who may not be wrestling with those things, but can you get out of your bubble and go be with them?
Well, I appreciate all the questions being posed, and I appreciate the inputs and insights of everybody in this group. As always, Andrew Hanauer, a great friend and partner out there in the front lines, working with us, to advance these ideas around the country, with some desire that if we advance these ideas around the country, that they will be advanced in turn around the world. Speaking of which, we've got a book coming out tomorrow, and American Awakening, 8 Principles.
That's right.
To Restore the Soul of America is actually, on sale officially tomorrow. And as interesting, thank you very much for those of you on the pod that we just flashed the image up. And as importantly, if not more importantly, and why Marissa Prince is not here, she is polishing to a very, 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 very high sheen the concert production, which will be
down to the last minute.
Yes, exactly. Well, you can never make it better. You can always make it better. That's what I'm trying to say. Make it better. And so she's using every final minute to make this show, which was already awesome. I've already seen cuts of it, be even better. And tomorrow evening, 8:00 Eastern, register for free with us at www.americanawakening.us. It is an amazing show, and you will be grateful you're a part of it. So thank you, Marissa. Thank you, Marissa Prince, for laboring on our behalf. We're super grateful for that. Thank you for Andrew Hanauer for showing up. And we're going to kick you over to Nashville and Dan Hazeltine and our special guest, Brian Simpson.
Well, hello from Nashville. It's great to be on with you guys today. It is definitely a Monday, isn't it? Boy, I
every way.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to just come and if you wanted to just look at the world, it would be hard to find some good things of hope in the moment. But stuff is out there, and it's good things are happening. I am so reminded. I loved your conversation today. The reminder to me was just that we have two opportunities before us, especially now, and even in the midst of things like COVID, and when it seems like we're trying to isolate ourselves even more, we have to either pat ourselves from the suffering of the world, or we have the opportunity to enter into the suffering of the world. And as a lot of my mentors over the years have encouraged me and said, you know what, the better life, the one that is more dynamic, more painful, and more joyful, is when you get a chance to enter into the suffering of the world. And so I affirm exactly what you guys are talking about and feel like that's the better way. And so if people can find out what the needs are around them, enter into those places and see if there's something you can be a part of. And I think the world will start to look a lot more hopeful. So you're right on with that. Our musical guest today is another just amazing person. I am blown away to have Brian Simpson with us. Brian, if you know Brian, it's because you're a connoisseur of great music, and I know, right? Brian, I first met Brian at I believe it was a coffee shop, and I was having lunch with a friend of mine who is a legendary engineer and producer, a guy named Vance Powell. And Brian walked up to us and was just talking, and Vance had just finished mixing a project with that Brian was a lead on. And when Brian left the table, Vance kind of leaned into me and he said, he's really amazing, incredibly creative. this record is going to turn heads. It's amazing. And it was the first the Whistles and the Bells album.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I went out and got that and was just blown away. Like, what a creative project. An album full of punctuation is what I like to say. Like, it's just exclamations here and there and just musical power. It was such a great album. And I followed Brian ever since. And I know that you've had a life before that as part of Cadillac Sky, and your upbringing was through bluegrass. But I feel like you've done so much more than just stayed within the traditional realm of bluegrass. You've expanded and elbowed the genre out a little bit and created something for yourself. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to introduce you to Brian Simpson. Brian, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, man, it's definitely. I've been sitting here listening to the show, and it's the most level-headed live stream I've ever heard in my life. Podcasts, been, incredible.
Yeah,
I don't know what to say about it.
Well, it's a Monday, so that's part of it.
There's like wise and all the things happening. It wasn't people just looking for sound bites. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
well,
man,
Brian,
that's. I mean, Vance Powell, Thad Cockrell. I called Thad Cockrell, which we and you are both friends of.
Yes.
Of that legend, and we and he said he should. I said I only want to make that record, that Whistling the Bells record, with Vance Powell, and he told me I should call him. And I just remember that Vance answered. I didn't think he would ever answer, by the way, but he answered after the first ring, and he was in Iceland, and he just said, "Hey, I'll call you back. I'm in Iceland right now, but I want to work on the project." And that was definitely some sort of wild situation that all that kind of stuff started to come together for a record. And and most appropriately, when you said that I've elbowed certainly my string band folk bluegrass roots, that's for sure. And they have responded by elbowing back. There's no question. Bluegrass is not going to be toyed with too much without some pushback. But it's good. But we're all better for that.
Yes. Well, I mean, I feel like it is such a hearty genre. My first memories growing up as a kid were engaging with music, where my dad would always take me. I lived in New England. He would always take me to bluegrass festivals, and I have a deep love for the genre.
Boston and DC and that whole people think it's like a Southern thing, and of course it has its roots with Bill Monroe in Kentucky, but some huge in the 70s and 80s and stuff like that. All the stuff happening in DC and in Boston that area was super, super important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's great to have you on. Your latest project, kind of iteration of things, is called The Golden Age. And I want to talk about that for a few minutes. Because it is sort of a return a little bit, to a little bit more of a traditional voice with bluegrass. I'm not going to say it's totally traditional, because I do feel like it's still your thumbprint in it, and it still has this great kind of whimsy and punctuation to it. But tell us a little bit about how you came to this project.
Well, The Golden Age is with me and one of my best friends in the world, Matt Menifee, who we started Cadillac Sky together a good long time ago. And it was just that the situation, like, there's something so incredibly the energy is so incredible. You can just grab acoustic instruments and sit in any room and play music together. And of course, the Whistling the Bells had 37 instruments playing at one time, so it was this big elaborate thing, which is something I definitely makes exercise again. But it's certainly like something that within the bluegrass limited sort of walls, which I actually enjoy, of the 5-string instrumentation of I wanted to break out of that and do some other stuff, write some other songs that don't quite fit well in that sort of setting, and play with other instruments and other things in the toolbox. But this was a return. It is, as much as anything, getting a chance to sort of like let these songs be intimate as much as possible. Try to make sure that when I'm writing songs, they can translate. They can translate if I'm just playing for someone just sitting across from me. And of course, the Whistle and the Bells, that project is more to sort of be on bigger stages and be louder and all that kind of stuff. So you tend to think about those things when you're making that kind of music. But just the connection of the human connection of playing an instrument with my best buddy, Matt Menifee, to sit down with a guitar and a banjo or a mandolin and a banjo or something like that, or dobro or something like that, just me and him, and make music together is something that it has a rare spark to it that I love. And also just something that I think I can do. I want to be doing when I'm really, really old, so like, and want to be sitting under shade trees and making music and there's a lot of room for play in that sort of world as well. Things that haven't necessarily been done. And of course, ultimately you just return to the music that your dad played for you or your granddad played for you when you were driving around in the car between 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old or whatever. And so I have it connects me to so many things when I play that music. And that's pretty cool.
Well, and I've seen you play. You've been gracious enough to bring various iterations of your performance and your style to Bloodwater, to a lot of the things that I've been a part of. So it's been just a gift to be around and watch you make music in real time. And so with that, would you guys, you got a guitar there. I know you don't have Matt next to you. But we'd love to hear you play something today.
He was out. He's playing with doing a thing with John Cowan today, who's one of the hallmarks of Newgrass revival, and so he took the legend route there. And I'll play a song from. This is from our. We put out a record. Wildly enough, we put out a record in February, and the CD release actually was supposed to the record release CD release. What is that? Mm-hmm. The record release was actually supposed to happen the day after the tornado hit Nashville. So we still haven't. We're already ready to put out a second record. We haven't even had a chance to have a release party for this one with COVID and all that stuff following afterwards. But anyway, this goes out to I'll send this out to my buddy Anthony Bird and just all the people who are kind of missing people today. And this has been just a rough season. A bunch of stuff going on. It's kind of a song about wishing things were a certain way, and maybe they can be that way sometime. It's called If Rifle Shot Roses. I wish rifles shot roses and records never scratched. The pack a day didn't turn granddaddy's lungs black. I wish B-roll stayed cold and old dogs didn't die. And people smiled Sunday morning like Saturday night. Wish blue skies would stay blue and families would stay glued and the bloom never come off the rose. Wish hometowns would stay small and hearts wouldn't be walls, and I'd leave the devil's door closed. Lord knows if I could, I would sure wish you back. If rifles shot roses and records never scratched. I wish winters went quicker and all the glitter was gold. You didn't have to face the storm to see a rainbow. And I wish I was better at saying what's on my mind. Wish I could learn to move on, or at least turn back time. Wish blue skies would stay blue, true love would stay true, and the bloom never come off the rose. Wish hometowns could stay small and hearts wouldn't build walls and time wouldn't heal so damn slow. I'd stop trying to glue back all this shattered glass. If rifles shot roses and records never scratched. I wish sunsets and streetlights, wildflowers on the roadside didn't remind me of you. could write me a song that would sing you back home. I'd sing it till my face turned blue. Lord knows if I could, I'd sure wish you back. You are the best friend that I've ever had. We could rise from these ashes and strike every match. Every rifle shot of roses, and records never scratched.
Yeah. So good.
Love it.
And
Love it.
it's that the image that came to mind when you were singing that song for me. Somebody had just posted. I'm not even sure where they got the image from, but obviously this past weekend, we watched Senator John Lewis go back across the Edmund Pettus Bridge there in Selma, and there was an image of people. There was people that were scattering rose petals along the bridge, in the middle of the bridge. It's really just a striking image of seeing that. So, yeah,
that's beautiful.
Well done. Way to go.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's this season you mentioned you're already ready for a second album, and I need you to know that actually before we were on today, while the show was happening, I wasn't spending all my time listening to the conversation that was happening because I was online buying the record from your shop. So I have a vinyl album coming soon.
Yes.
So I'm excited to get that.
Lots of vinyl records at the house. We have lots of vinyls. My wife keeps reminding me because we haven't been able to play shows since the record came out. So if anybody wants to buy the vinyl, help my wife out. We're trying to move, and there's a lot of vinyls at this point, and she would like me to sell them. And I'm like, hey, we can't tour at the moment. So every vinyl really helps add to my wife's quotient of joy.
Yeah, which thus adds to yours also, exactly. And that's helpful. So it's good. So, but you're ready. You're kind of already ready to jump in and do something else. Has this been a lot of artists that we've talked to on the show? They've sort of vacillated between two areas. One being like just completely anxious over what's happening in the culture moment we're in, and then the other feeling just like it's freed them up to be really creative. Where would you say you've landed in this?
Yeah, probably freed me up to be more creative and just to sit still and to sit in my front yard with my dogs and sitting there and think about, just sort of it makes you sort of sort out your life a little bit, like sort out what you believe in, what are your baseline truths and things that you sort of resonate around. And for me, that's been really, really helpful. And, I don't know, maybe this season would have been creative without all this happening, but we have no idea, no way to know that. But it's definitely been, for me, it's definitely been a time of the sort of creative pipeline has been wide open for sure.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah, I will be interested to see what comes out from sort of the general wave of music. I feel like most things, movies, you find that one movie comes out and there's 4 other films that have a similar theme that approach just because of where the cultural conversation is happening. It's going to be really interesting to see over the next 6 months what the music conversation will be like in as a whole.
Definitely. I mean, honestly, for me, it's like, it makes you sort of like look into yourself and see like, what am I about, and is my music reflective of that? I think there's not to navel gaze too much, but at least just figure out like to sort of you get back to what you actually believe in and what you want to talk about. And for me, it's always been like, is my music really expressing who I am in a dinner conversation? And so it's also like allowed me to like write with some sort of, things are so crazy that it's also like, I've just been like, I have to continue to add some levity to these songs. I have to try to like, allow the songs songs just can't be super serious at the moment. I know some people, I think the idea is that out of this stuff, a lot of super serious songs will come, and that will happen. But I also think there'll be some songs that, have the glasses and the nose on and the mustache, because, I mean, the only way to get through this is to
that's true.
find such a loss to us, because he added humor to the situation. And that's the way I think we have to look at it.
Yeah, well, I do. If I can make one kind of prediction, I imagine there might be fewer songs about hanging in the club.
Yeah, probably.
Unless, of course, you're in Nashville, where they're still allowing you to do that at some
There's a
level.
lot of hanging in the
And
club.
you shouldn't. Yeah, and then that indicts a lot of people. However,
Yeah, a song about wishing that wish I could hang out with my friends. That's for sure. Maybe not necessary. I've never wanted to hang out at a club.
Me neither, really. Good. Well, hey, Brian, are you willing to give us one more song today?
Sure. Yeah, definitely, man. I'd love to.
Brilliant. I would love to hear you play one more song. Thanks so much for being with us, for being willing to jump on. We do have the link up there so people can check out the Golden Age, thegoldenagepage.com, and go on and buy a record, buy a shirt, buy a hat. Actually, you've always been great with the artwork and design and stuff like that. I'm a fan of great album art and great, the aesthetic of T-shirts and merchandising. You guys you're on top with that. It's good stuff. So
It's all the big art project. It's our summer art project, I feel like. Okay, well, this goes out to I wish my buddy Matt was here, because he played the banjo like no one else in the world does. But I'll try to play this one out. And this is a song called Bad Superheroes. I've been all around this country. I've been all around the world. Been swept off my feet by a many boy and girl. Opened a lot of oysters and I found a few pearls. Cut me open and I'll bleed. I've eaten caviar and crow, drinking lock and Hennessy. And I had a couple nightmares, realized a lot of dreams. And I'm still trying to learn what God is trying to teach. Life is hard, have some sympathy. Oh, blessed are the poor, at least the Bible tells me so. But I hope it ain't eternal, 'cause don't it sure get old. I've met some of the richest people that I know down in that old ghetto. So pity them folks trapped in them champagne bubbles with earrings like chandeliers and cocaine on the double. Money ain't the root, but it's one hell of a jungle when you got it or when you don't. See, some drew the ace, some drew harder cards, and they're trapped like fireflies in mason jars. Not all prisoners live behind bars. Life is hard, have some sympathy. And all you penny-wasted liberals and stiff-necked Republicans who would kill each other dead if the point could be won, leave them bloody in the streets like Alexander Hamilton. Can't we agree to abort politics? And all this extra walking, tightrope talking that slowly dilutes us, and this cynicism that poisons and pollutes us. Blame Stalin, Bin Laden, Hitler, and Judas, but the real villain is I don't know my neighbor and he don't know me. We fought about the dogs, and now we hardly speak. If you don't love your neighbor, you won't love your enemy. We're gonna need us a new bag of tricks. That's first. They're preaching the end, and we're picking up our weapons. Nobody's saying nothing, and we're all feeling threatened. Maybe the human heart is the side of Armageddon, but one thing's a certainty. With every day that passes, the ice is getting thinner. So may we offer grace all be great forgivers. We're all running the race, but ain't we all beginners, saints and sinners? Won't you agree? All life is hard, have some sympathy. Beginning. Everybody.
Yeah. So good. Way to go. I love it. So good. Brian,
Good
thanks so
lines in
much
there.
again.
Yeah, man, that was great. Thanks for giving me the little bit of wisdom to listen to this morning before I got on.
Oh man. Well,
Man.
we'll keep an eye out for you. I know once things start rolling again, you'll be out on the road playing some shows, and we'll get to hear you play all this live. Hopefully with your buddy Matt too. Yeah. So thanks for being with us. Thanks for for bringing it today. We love it.
Oh, man, awesome.
All
Yeah,
right, Brian.
appreciate it.
Good stuff. I'll kick it back to JK now.
Brian Simpson, thank you. Thank you, Dan Hazeltine. Thank you, everybody. Jefferson, Joel, JBJ, Calvin, Andrew Hanauer. It's been a great show covering the basics of humanity and the fact that we've got to all get back to the fundamental that ultimately we just need God, and that he's paying attention through all these tough times, and he's hearing all of our requests and ready to respond to all of our cries of our heart and counting up those tears as we heard. And so help us, Son of David, have mercy on us. God's got mercy on you all out there. Thanks for being with us. Look forward to the next opportunity, and tune in tomorrow night, 8 o'clock on, if you're on pod, it's tonight. So tomorrow night live stream, tonight pod, Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, and we'd love to see you there. Thanks so much. Bye now.